Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. The heroes trapped under the domes weren't all clones, former sidekicks, and possible future iterations, but also the heavy hitters we're more familiar with. I'm taking issue with Convergence, Superman, written by Dan Jurgens, accompanied by Lee Weeks and Brad Anderson on art. Let's see if this story makes us want to turn the page, or turn our heads. Issue 1's cover features a tender moment of Superman and Lois kissing, probably while there's a bonfire behind them. Makes more sense than making out in the middle of a destroyed city. We open on night in Gotham City, as a figure dressed in black runs across rooftops.
That's Batman.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Except this guy's talking about he's sure he can do just as good as the Dark Knight, despite not having all those years of training or pointed ears on his mask. Someone over a radio reminds him that Bats was nasty and obsessive, none of which describes who it turns out to be Clark Kent, as he interrupts a drug deal, and Lois acting as his proverbial oracle, and that's when Telos's message plays across the city. As Jimmy Olsen snaps some pictures, having followed the goons, it turns out these guys couldn't get drugs into the city and decided to make their own, which ended up killing some people. One of the thugs uses a flamethrower on their mystery assailant, but all it does is burn off the top layer of clothes, showing Superman is back and powered up again. Doesn't quite explain why he was wearing his super suit underneath his clothes, though I guess the neat imagery is supposed to make us overlook that. But because these guys aren't very smart after seeing him survive fire unscathed, they test the Man of Steel's powerlessness by shooting him. Don't worry, fellas. I'm sure the next clip has the one ordinary bullet that'll manage to kill Superman. Big Blue heat visions the guns so their owners will drop them, but one guy manages to take Jimmy hostage. The photog isn't worried, though, nor should he be, as Soup speedily retrieves him and sets him on a random rooftop. We get a bit of dialogue explaining how he, Lois, Clark, and Perry presumably, were in Gotham for a news convention when the city got domed. But there's no time to talk now, as he flies back home to Lois. They embrace, and we see that she is pregnant. Now with the dome gone and the due date closing in, their baby can be born in Metropolis like they wanted. Well, the good news is that'll just take flying across an alien landscape. Bad news, it may be an alternate Metropolis protected by a snotty teenage clone or a haggard old man. There might be other options, but they're probably overrun with wild monkeys or hyper-intelligent gerbils. They sit and talk a while, reflecting on their time stuck in the dome and covering stories, despite having no means of publication, joking about how Lois is sort of like a sidekick. Soups figures he should head out to investigate the source of that mysterious voice, but that can wait, as he treasures a quiet moment alone with his wife. Hey, what about those drug dealers that set you on fire? Pretty sure they're still on the loose. Lois reveals she recorded Telos's message, more detailed than in the other tie-ins. Superman doesn't much care for the experiment to only leave one city alive, and, well, it's odd how Telos says only the greatest heroes will live, but he's involved clear villains like the extremists, so he must not be in the know on what a hero is. Soups leaves to look into the matter while Lois stays connected on their comm devices, and somehow she has a window image of an alternate Batman. It's possible that it's a recording of an image projected on the dome as it fell, like in previous stories, but she seems too surprised now for that to be the case. Unless this Gotham has its own working internet and someone posted it on a bat tube. Flying across Gotham, Soups uses his super eyes to spot the various alternate cities taken and implanted on an alien planet. And despite the threatening nature of the message, he'll seek out an alternative to fighting to the death. In another Gotham, one from the Flashpoint mistake, because that's what it deserves to be called, Batman, who's Thomas Wayne instead of Bruce, tells some of his allies to prepare for war, courtesy of Abin Sur's Green Lantern ring generating a monitor. The scrawny Kal-El isn't ready to rush into battle, but his gritty and edgy compatriots like Cyborg and Captain Thunder disagree. Flashpoint Bats detects a flyer incoming and tells them to assume the worst and take him out.
Yeah, we're so angry and bloodthirsty and cynical, and that's what makes us cool. Extreme!
At Star Labs, Jimmy has met with Professor Hamilton, who's determined they're on an alien planet. Why this was done to have people fight is unknown. Olsen wants to photograph some alien terrain, so the prof lets him use a transport he'd originally intended to pierce the dome. But hey, not much use for that anymore. Superman is headed towards the other Gotham, noting that it seems like it's in worse shape than the one he's lived in for the past year, when he's knocked out of the sky by something headed in the opposite direction, as fast as Wally West.
Out of my way, I've seen her, she's alive!
Her friend told me she died when a group of rabbit ferrets chased her into a volcano, but I knew she was wrong!
That's when Captain Thunder comes out of nowhere, though Soups seems to begin calling him Shazam, his post-New 52 name. But since this is pre-New 52, pre-Flashpoint Superman, he should be calling him Captain Marvel. But hey, legal stuff, I guess. Just as Thunder Thighs thinks his Bat buddy overestimated their opponent, Big Blue shows him what's what. He asks if Thunder will listen to reason as the counterpart of Soups' Earth would, then Cyborg and Abin attack. Clark stresses that no one need die as he takes their attacks. Sewer using a 6-shooter construct for some reason. Not sure why he wouldn't go with a ray gun or something native to his own people. They consider listening to him, though not letting up on their attack, being assured Soups is there alone. And that's when Jimmy shows up, showing the ride he borrowed from Hamilton apparently possesses formidable armaments. The Flashpointers take this as a sign Soups can't be trusted, and resume their assault. Meanwhile, Skinny L is searching for Lois Lane, whose voice he'd heard previously, overjoyed since his world's Lois died and was the only one to ever show him any kindness. At the monitors, Flashpoint Bats wonders if this Gotham is the one of Barry Allen's world, where his son survived.
I thought that world, that timeline, would replace ours. Close, but not quite. What we got was infinitely stupider.
However his reality survived, he ponders if he could fight his own son, while Super Skin and Bones lets himself into the Kent apartment. As he approaches, Lois tries to convince him that she's not who he thinks she is, but he's intent on keeping her safe while the city dies. She calls out to Clark as he's busy getting thrashed by 3 so-called heroes.
I don't think the Flashpoint characters are so much overpowering Superman as it is they're overwhelming him with how Jeff Johns was trying too hard, without a good editor.
This 2-page history lesson features Superman's life from the time of his marriage to Lois to the new Krypton arc, even mentioning that electrical phase so many readers would love to forget. Issue 2's cover sees Bat Thomas watching Superman comfort Lois as she seems to go into labor. We open to a splash page of the aforementioned altar bats demanding a status update while standing in front of a family portrait. After the exposition of what we already know, he's told, I assume by his computer, that his cohorts are fighting Superman, then repeats he expected not to exist after Barry Allen changed things back. Then asks who/whatever to compare the opponent Gotham to what it knows about Allen's Earth to see if they're the same. But nothing conclusive.
There are limits to the questions Siri can answer, dude.
At the brawl, Cy tells Abin to take out the flying car, and he does, after saying he wonders if Superman's talk of cooperation is worth considering. You know, the thing they talked about last issue then decided to disregard after Jimmy tried to help? Amazing how he can backflip like that without actually moving. With his pal in danger, Superman tosses his enemies aside to give Jimmy a safe landing. The faces may be familiar, but they're nothing like their Earth's heroes. Here freaking here. After again offering to work together, his opponents give him the super edgy, grim stare, not willing to risk it because of what a mysterious voice said. So they resume their attacks, and Soups shows how much better he is than Subject 1, aka Skinny Cal. As Thunder begins cutting loose, Lois's call for help is heard, and that's when Clark has officially had enough. Regardless of the uber-dark, tragic world they live in, Superman is going to safeguard the ones he loves.
Love? How dare you speak the word that is forbidden by Grand Dipstick Didio?
The Green Lantern is willing to talk after Soups is beaten, but Jimmy finally proves useful by hitting him with an energy cannon, and Soups is okay with that, telling Jim that Lois Lane needs help. Olsen guesses she may be about to deliver the baby, and her husband, Clark, will want to be present. I'll see if I can find him.
Huh. You know, on losing his powers and being trapped in the city for a year, I'd have figured that maybe Lois and Clark would have told Jimmy about Superman's secret lies. I can see not telling the public, but their closest friend and colleague? Maybe if it had been a couple more years under the dome, they would have.
Scrawny Cal has taken Lois to the cave for medical care, since not much is left a secret with someone from his powers, and deduced that Thomas Wayne was a doctor. Even if she's from a different world, he cares about Lois and her safety, and nothing will make her an enemy in his eyes. Bat Thomas reveals that he's figured out that she's with the Superman. Where I'm from, you two were friends.
Friends? Now you speak the word forbidden by movie craftsman Snyder and Goy. I shall hear no more.
Soups arrives home to find Lois gone, but sees her abduction on the recording from her webcam. Abensor arrives, now realizing they share a common enemy. But before heading to the Flashpoint Batcave, Abin elucidates with his Ring's Tragic Origins app that their Cal, Subject 1, was confined his whole life and never allowed to truly develop his abilities, and the Lois that he loved died in his arms. Then he explains how Thomas Wayne lost his son to a bullet and wife to madness, as Martha eventually became the Joker. But taking Lois to a doctor confirms that it's time for the baby to arrive. However, she's hesitant to give birth in a freak show, and that's when Subject 1 is removed from the picture. Clark approaches his wife as it's revealed that she kept her headset, which means it could be tracked from her computer, though there are a number of ways Soups could have discovered her location otherwise, or the fact that since they're talking about an alternate Batman, he'd be under a Batcave which is ever situated under Wayne Manor, but whatever. Alterbats, apparently acquiescing to the whole situation, says it might be safer to stay in the cave, as Captain Thunder would not think to look there.
So if he saw Superman flying across the sky holding a pregnant woman, he wouldn't hesitate to attack? Because that wouldn't surprise me from one of DC's attempts to look hip and cool.
As a tremor is felt, as happened in previous tie-ins, it looks like the only option is to deliver the baby in the cave. But since Thomas hasn't doctored since his son's murder, this is a job for Superman. A collage of images show, I'm guessing, either time passing just under 2 hours, or it took Lois 5 minutes to deliver the baby, and it looks as though Dr. Bats even gave a little backseat guidance. So, wrapping his newborn son in his cape, he hands him to his mother while he talks to Thomas, telling him the Bruce of his universe is a good man. The former doctor says life is the most precious commodity, and insists Clark do whatever it takes to protect his newborn child. He really doesn't know who he's talking to if he thinks Superman of all people needs to be told that. Husband and wife gather with the new addition of their family, Jonathan Samuel Kent, expressing their love as the comic ends.
And that was Convergence Superman. And I'm not crying, you're crying!
I liked the story overall, but that isn't to say it's without its problems. It did seem like Superman kind of let those drug dealers go, and expected Jimmy to hold off Cyborg and Thunderboy. Unless those two were unconscious for the duration of the story, or Abin's sword dropped Olsen off somewhere safe, I don't think he's in a good place right now. And that's nothing to say of whatever happened to Subject 1 after Soups flew him off panel. Was he just knocked out or locked somewhere safe? I think it would have made a bit more sense and maybe had a better impact overall if the We're Just So Cool League regrouped in the cave, found Superman delivering his child, and were inspired by the moment to agree to find another solution other than fighting. There are other issues, some people might not feel the same way as me, like Clark calling out Lois's name out loud amongst gun-toting drug dealers, and the fact that Thomas Wayne, A Batman that kills is talking about how precious human life is. I only read the collected Flashpoint in a hardcover, but I really don't get people's fascination with this version of Batman. Different tragic outcome or not.
And I still wonder where Batman is in all this. It's his city, after all. Honestly, I don't think having Superman's cast in Gotham impacted the story that much, since I'm pretty sure Metropolis would still have its own drug dealers under the dome. And if you're thinking that maybe it's because Lois wanted her kid born in Metropolis, but she was stuck in Gotham, I don't think they played that up much to really affect things, and you could still get the same effect if they were in Metropolis, but Subject 1 took her to Flashpoint Batman's cave where she had to give birth.
I like the art overall, thoroughly enjoyed Superman schooling the Flashpointers, and enjoyed that human moment of Superman helping Lois deliver their baby, as it was a wonderful exception to the general mediocrity or just downright terribleness I've come to expect from latter-day DC. No wonder this version of the Kents not only made the jump to the horribly changed main canon, but eventually replaced their New 52 counterparts.
Next week, we break the Titan Super pattern with the final tie-in to Convergence, involving characters that an alleged fan has managed to screw up by a writer I'm unfamiliar with. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.